Welcome to the I Am STS podcast. I'm your co-host, Alton Cryer.
And I'm Jeremy B. Calhoun.
Man, we just finished up with a banger, bro.
Man. I'm finna go read 4 books.
Come on, that
because that's what the average man do.
There you go.
I'm gonna start with the Bible.
You talk about, there you go. You know what? That'd be good.
That's 1 of 4.
Yeah, man. We just hit our dog, man, Kelvin. Yeah. Like Kelvin Woods, man, just a sharp individual, bro. And bro, the evolution of kind of where he started and where he is now, bro, it's a blessing to see, bro. Like, it's like, man, it's almost like, man, I can transition, man, and just the education and the knowledge, man, it's inspirational, bro.
Yeah, man, it made me want to step. I'm like, I got to go back and step my game up.
And, bro, when we did our podcast, bro, like, the books that he be like, he has, it's like, man, the knowledge that he has, bro, he able to take that and apply it to the business, bro. And I'm
just
like,
surface level.
Yeah, bro. And I should have been reading, bro. I should be reading more books, bro.
So you're not a good gym accountability partner. You want to be a good.
I can't believe you joking. When last time you been to the gym, man?
That's why you got accountability partner.
You, bro. You a joker, man. Look, we gotta watch this episode where we gonna try to go work out, go read some books. Watch this episode where I got Kelvin Woods, man. Y'all gonna enjoy it, man. Look. Sit down, pen and pad. Take notes on this one, man.
Yeah, and the books he gave us, Sitting Down, what it was called, Sitting Down with the Devil?
Sitting with the Devil.
Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill. It was Conversation with the Devil. Yeah. It's about looking at some of the things that are holding down society.
And the emails about the skills.
The road less traveled. Man, I'm telling y'all, man, sit down, take some notes on this podcast. Y'all gonna enjoy it. Check it out.
All right, today's guest is a powerhouse in both entrepreneurship and community leadership. Kelvin Woods, a Memphis native who attended the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga for art and design, built his first print shop from the ground up in Nashville before expanding all across Tennessee and eventually selling his business in 2020. Since then, he's become a trusted consultant and business broker, guiding others through growth, strategy, and successful acquisitions. A Memphis Urban League Top 40 Under 40 honoree and an MBJ Small Business of the Year recipient, Kelvin is all about training, experience, and empowerment. And today we're diving into the lessons, the hustle, and the heart behind this journey. Take some time and enjoy this episode of the I Am STS podcast with Kelvin Woods.
What's up, bro? What's going on, man?
You got it, man. It's good to be with y'all, man. I know you was my co-host on the podcast.
So
I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, it's good to be beside you again.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, dog.
Good introduction, man. Appreciate that.
Like, look,
great job, Jay.
He made it easy.
Great job, Jay. Go ahead.
He made it easy.
Don't judge my introduction on the last podcast, y'all. Just working kicks out.
Hey, man, what's up, man? Talk to me. You Mr. Entrepreneur, man. You do so much from the work that you've done with the with the T-shirt lab that you had, what you're doing now as a broker, even what you did. I know there was what's it called, the thing you did where you work with the kids in the equestrian.
Entrepreneurship class.
Yeah. So, man, you're doing so much around entrepreneurship, man. Talk about your journey, but then tell us like the genesis. Why a print shop?
Why a print shop? Great question. It's interesting, man. I was literally just having a conversation over lunch about this same topic. I went to school for art, graphic design to be specific. I'm originally from Memphis, went to Overton, which is a performance art school. So I went there because I got into the Kappa program for art. And so as I was transitioning, getting ready to go to school, you know, I heard a lot of people saying starving artist, right? You don't want to be an artist, because I really wanted to paint and draw, and honestly, that's still my passion. And we can talk a little bit about that.
Picasso?
You got some projects, bro.
Yeah, paint and draw. I wouldn't necessarily say Picasso.
He got some projects, bro. Cold, bro. I'm like, you do this? Can I buy one? Nah, it's an original. Like,
it's original.
Well, a lot of the stuff I don't do it to sell. I just do it more so as an outlet.
I thought a friend, he was going to sell it or give it to me, but he wouldn't do it.
I sell it, but it,
okay.
It got to be a good price.
I got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, but nah, man. So as I was going to school, there was a thought that was kind of replaying. Am I going to be a starving artist? So I decided that I was going to have to make my own way at art. So what I did was I decided to go towards graphic design. And while doing my career in graphic design or pursuing my education in graphic design, I started working in print for FedEx Kinko's. At the time, it's FedEx Office now. Yeah. And just fell in love with print production, fell in love with design. And so that kind of would transition me into, running my own company eventually in the print space.
Yeah. Bro, so, okay, all right, you originally started in Nashville.
The print shop.
The print shop. Mm-hmm. You were at UT Chat. What did UT Chat?
Yep.
Okay. What brought you back to the city? What brought you back to Memphis?
You know, man, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I'm one of those people that move away and decided that I wasn't coming back to Memphis. Right?
Really?
Nah, man, I wasn't going to come back to Memphis. I was honestly, we had moved, both me and my wife, high school sweethearts. We went to school together. And so we was having a good time in Chattanooga. We didn't have a lot of responsibility. It was just us. Yeah. And then she actually got a promotion at her job. She was working in IT, and they relocated us to Nashville. And so I was still working for FedEx at the time in the print department. It kind of started moving up a little bit. And enjoyed what I did. And around that time is when I decided that, you know, I'm young, I don't have a lot of responsibilities. And before life really get hectic, it's time to, you know, start the entrepreneurship. And so I stepped out from my job and started my entrepreneur career in my 2-car garage. And so around that time, my wife got pregnant with our first child. And so, you know, you get the maternity leave. And so as the maternity leave was over, she went back to work and I'm still in the startup phase for my business, right? And now I got a baby. And so literally all of my vendors in Nashville, they would see me, you know, you can ask them, I would come in, they would see me and they would see me in this car seat because I would take my daughter everywhere. This just got a little hectic. And so we had a conversation. I was like, you know, it may be time to go back to Memphis, get some help from family. And honestly, even though I didn't want to come back to Memphis, it was one of the best decisions, man, that, you know, I could have made.
But talk about the transition though, from the job to going full time. Talk about, because I know you always talk about, man, burning the bridge so there's no turning back.
Yeah.
So talk, if you don't mind talking about this. I know we talk about it a lot, but tell the story, bro.
So, man, I was 24 at the time, and I was a lead project coordinator for FedEx. And they had, you know, did some major projects. And so my job was to make sure that those projects got done correct and on time, right? And so it was a decent position. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of responsibility at that age to be able to do that. And so, you know, I had been reading a lot of entrepreneurs' books. I've always really been an entrepreneur at heart. And so one of the books I read or one of the podcasts or stories I heard talked about, you know, this general that was going into war. And, you know, he as he was addressing his soldiers, he told them, you know, look back, you know, all the boats he had set on fire. And essentially what he was saying is, if you guys want to live, if you want to win, then essentially what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to fight because there's no retreat. And so around that time, that was playing in my mind. And so I decided, you know, I'm going to go ahead and quit my job and pursue entrepreneur full time. And so, man, suit and tie, walked in, and my boss was like, dude, what are you doing? You had a uniform? And I was like, well, you know, I need to talk to you. Had the envelope in the pocket, letter of resignation. I told him, I was like, man, this is, I'm going to step away. I'm going to pursue entrepreneurship full time. And he was like, man, I understand that we already kind of saw in you something different. And he was saying that, you know, do me a favor, put your 2-week notice in. That way, you know, if entrepreneurship don't work out, you always got, you know, a place to come back. And again, burn the bridges was playing in my mind, right? No retreat. And so I told him, I was like, man, I appreciate that advice. Unfortunately, today is my last day. And so I burnt that bridge, of course, didn't want to go back. And after about a year in business, my first year, I made about $8,000. And I was regretting, you know, not having that bridge to go back. But it forced me to move forward, right? And make decisions to be able to grow my business. And so I'm grateful for that, for sure.
Major, bro. Major.
That's a lot. Look, hey, real quick, man, I know we got to do a spotlight for our sponsor, V2 Media. Clear, concise, creative media. Y'all, V2 Media is the #1 platform, the #1 company in this area if you want to do any type of production, y'all. They got an amazing studio, an amazing group that will take care of any of your production and media needs, right? Man, shout out to Uncle Mark and his team. They're the creators of our podcast. They sponsor it. Man, they do great work. You see how clear it is. You know, it's very clear, concise, and they really make sure that we do have great production. So, again, if you're looking for anything creative-wise, production-wise, please check out V2 Media. Again, clear, concise, creative media.
Uncle Mark,
what do you do?
What's up?
But yeah, man, that's don't burn that bridge. And you said, man, look, I'm straight. We're gonna burn it. But did you need that bridge to push forward? Like, did you need to burn it so you wouldn't go back? Do you think if you would have left it, that you'd have went back?
Yeah. I think, you know, we live a lot of times in our comfort zone, right? And sometimes it's a challenge to break that. And so making that decision to burn that bridge and not having a place to retreat forced me to figure it out. Because again, later on in my career, as I started, doing my business and I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make. And oh, by the way, we're pregnant. It's like, oh, I hate I made that decision. But, once you don't have an avenue to go back on, what do? You just got to move forward. So it was a great decision. And you hear a lot of people say, don't burn bridges. And that applies, in my opinion, to, relationships and things like that. But sometimes you do got to put yourself in a situation, right, in order to win. And sometimes it comes with burning certain bridges so you don't have their retreat.
That's good. That's good, bro.
That's live. So, but let's talk about you got the press shop going, right? Like you said, it start $8,000 your first year to expand it to 4 locations. So we're making a little more than $8,000. Now we have 4 locations, right? So tell us about growing it from 4 locations, then selling it.
Okay.
What went into that? That's huge. Like, what's the mindset to say, man, I'm taking something that I put blood, sweat, tears into, money into, to turn around and sell it? What went into that?
Yeah, man, great question. So kind of filling the gaps between starting and selling the company, right? So I was in Nashville for 2 years in my garage running the company. And when I made the decision to move back to Memphis, I brought on my brother as a partner, Bobby, shout out to my brother. And so, man, we put a lot of time and attention into, growing this business, working late nights. Sometimes, man, I would get to the shop at 4 a.m. and want to leave at 2. You know what I'm saying? The next morning, just making sure that, we got everything done. And we was a small operation. And so from there, man, we just really did a ton of marketing, right? We just did good business. My philosophy is always go the extra mile, right? Do what's not expected of you, and that really paved the way for a lot of success in our business. But fast forward, man, we grew the company. And so leaving Nashville, I still had a book of business that I was trying to service while being back in Memphis. And it was a little bit challenging to do so. And so I ran into some guys who had a t-shirt company already in Nashville, and they was having a little bit of trouble trying to get it off the ground. And I said, well, I got a book of business that's already down there. How about we do a franchise type concept, right? And so when I did that, that allowed me to really start thinking about, the business from a scaling standpoint. I picked up a book pretty early in my career called The E-Myth, which is honestly, in my opinion, the Bible when it comes to business. And in the E-Myth, what it would do is it started talking about the systems that's required, right? How there's 3 people in one person as an entrepreneur. You got the entrepreneur, you got the manager, and then you got the technician, right? Okay. And so it started teaching you how to navigate between each one of those people that's inside of you, ultimately as the entrepreneur. And so, I would read that book. And sometimes, man, 2:00 in the morning, I'll write, right? And I read, and I write, and I read, and I write. And fast forward, once you talk about selling the business, I had essentially set up all of the systems through reading this book to make it, a sellable business. However, that wasn't the goal. The goal was to franchise the business out. And so I put all those systems in place for that. But I got a unique opportunity, man. A business broker reached out to me and said, had a buyer that was looking for, the industry that I was in. We talked numbers. The numbers look good. And, as you look back on my entrepreneur career, you will see a lot of projects, right? And when I reach that pinnacle in certain projects, it's fun, but it's time to move on. And with the t-shirt space, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Made a lot of relationships. That's how we connected. Made a lot of relationships.
Thank you for our shirt.
For sure. And built a lot of community around it, right? We used to hire people from the community. We used to make sure that, doing what you guys are doing with STS, right? Showing people firsthand what it takes to run a business. And it's not always pretty. And so, it was a tough decision to sell it, because of all the attachments. Financially, it made sense. Timing, it made sense. And it just allowed me, man, to, transition into another career. Took some time off and, just kind of reanalyze.
Took some time, all right. Man, I was gone for a couple years. But, bro, the T-shirt lab was a cultural, it was when T-shirt lab, when you saw, I think there was a void that we saw. Because one, Kelvin, the face was the brand, but also T-shirt lab. And you were like the person. You were like the person, bro. And I was like, man, every time I knew it was gone, I'm like, dang, T-shirt lab can't call my dog no.
It wasn't gone.
We ain't gone. It wasn't gone.
I just don't own it anymore.
It's the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. We want to shout with our dog Kelvin. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Shout out to our folks speaking and spiking. You know, that's our folks there too. You know, we try to spread the wealth. But there was a void that kind of left when you left the industry. Yeah. And so for you, bro, how did you transform and go through the process of, hey, this is Kelvin, the T-shirt lab guy, to Kelvin, the business broker? Yeah. What went into the process of transition, how people saw you, and then who you had to become? You know what I mean?
Well, that's a great question. And, looking back on it, it's clear, the path that, I went down to kind of get me to where I'm at today is being recognized as, entrepreneur, business broker, and all this stuff. But going through it, man, it was unclear, right? And I think the challenge in it all is you don't necessarily have a lot of people that have been down this road at that age, right? Yeah. I started the company at 24. I sold the company at 34, right? That's essentially when a lot of people are just now starting to get into their career. And so I've made essentially a career change, right? When a lot of people are getting started. And so I didn't have a lot of people to look to try to figure it out. And so, man, just like anything, right, I had put a ton of time into it. So the first thing I wanted to do was just take some time off and rest, right? Travel with the wife, travel with the kid and stuff like that. And man, about 2 months, I take that back, about 6 months in, I was bored. I got you. Right? I had been used to getting up, working my own business. I had a team of people, right? I had employees that I was managing. It just wasn't me and a press, right? We had a whole operation or whatever. And so coming from doing that for 10 years to not doing anything, waking up, whenever you want to wake up. Now, there's some perks to it. It was cool for a minute, but I got bored real quick. And so, man, I went to a conference, a Earn Your Leisure conference. And, it kind of exposed me to podcasting, this whole entrepreneur education wave. And, I'll be honest, man, if I go back into my story when I was in college, right, one of the things that I was doing was I was in network marketing, right? And so my foundation for entrepreneurship from 18 to, before starting my company, I had several years of entrepreneurship under my belt, and it really taught me the value of reading, this going the extra mile, all these different skill sets. And so when I went to this conference, I got exposed to entrepreneur education. I was like, I got some, things that I've done that I can kind of help and share with people. And it's really a lot of what I'm doing now, right, in my career as a business broker. A lot of people hadn't walked through the process of selling a business, right? A lot of people don't know what that looks like. A lot of people don't know what to do after they sell a business, right? And those are some of the things that I've already experienced, at a younger age. And so now I kind of sit in between a generation of entrepreneurs that's getting started, right? And I kind of advise them on the things that they need to do to structure the business, right? And then I'm sitting also in the middle of retiring aging population of business owners, right? That is looking for a process to be able to sell their business. So, a lot of that stuff that I've kind of went through and built has put me in a position to really, help people as a business broker. So I'm excited about that, man. But the transition was, it was an easy transition, but sometimes, it was a little bit difficult. Being able to do the podcast and talk to other entrepreneurs and things like that is kind of what tired me over. And then I did some consulting and things like that, man. But it was cool,
like who knew the podcast would help? Well, not help, but like just play a role in you transitioning into helping people. Because you mostly interview business entrepreneurs. Right? And so you heard their stories, you heard their operations, you heard the ins and outs, you heard some of the problems that they're kind of seeing, you heard some of the successes. They do very well. And so it almost helped build just like a more education base for you to help somebody consult them in their business, but also help them position it to sell as well. I think with you were my co-host in a lot of these interviews, but I think you prepared me for this. You know what I'm saying? You have your boy.
I think in Memphis sometimes we don't expose a lot of the truth when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? And I think sometimes with social media, a lot of the you tend to float towards popularity, right? And so a lot of the same people get the same attention, right? But there's, as you know, there's a lot of people, man, that do a lot of amazing things here in the city of Memphis that just don't get recognized for it. And so one of the things that I wanted to do with the podcast was, bring on a lot of entrepreneurs that I worked with through the T-shirt company, right? That I kind of saw them grow. I knew their stories and just kind of share and expose them to, other people in Memphis. And then another big thing that I really, really wanted to do with the podcast, and this was my true passion, is, man, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I've always kind of faced is gatekeeping. Right? People don't share information. People don't share relationships. It's very difficult, especially in a city like Memphis, where it's perception of scarcity. We all know that there's, it's not real, right? There's abundance in everything that we do. It's just how you look at it in your mindset. But, I wanted to open up the floodgates and expose entrepreneurs that people, can get access to. I dropped your contact in the description, right? It was, if you wanted to reach out to that person, it was a wide open. And so that was one of the biggest motivations behind kind of doing that.
I gotta ask 2 questions. This I know this off script, but I gotta ask these 2 questions.
Good.
This is good. I'm like, man, and the podcast was dope too. The equity tab.
Equity tab.
Go plug in. It was some gems every week. But 2 things. When did you know it was time to when did you know the journey was time to sell? Because so many people, they stay too long.
Okay.
Right? So talk about that, but then talk about the mindset of scarcity. Like, I struggle with scarcity when you feel like you got to get it all right now.
Yeah.
So how do you help leaders understand that this world is this is an abundant world?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? But talk about those 2 things for me.
Yeah. Well, I talk about the scarcity piece first. I think, if you become just an observer of nature, right, you see how abundant the world is, right? Animals, birds, things like that, they don't have to go out and, everything is provided for them, right? And in a sense, it's the same for us, right? It's in previous interviews that you guys have done, y'all talked about relationships and connections and things like that. And I think that's where a lot of abundance come from, right? Being able to connect, we all meant to connect with each other and work with each other, right? And so the more connections that you have, right, you have more opportunity. Now, talking about the when is it the right time to sell a business?
Yeah, how did you know?
Yeah. So how did I know was because of burnout, right? And so even in my practice now and what I do on a daily basis, you see entrepreneurs for several reasons, right? They want to sell businesses. Right now, the biggest push is retirement, right? Baby boomers are retiring, they're exiting. So I see a lot of people come to me because of that. But we also see a lot of people come to us because of burnout. Burnout is a real thing, man. It takes a lot to get a business off the ground. I don't think a lot of people realize, how much work actually goes into it. And in my case, we didn't have a lot of the capital to get the business going, so I pulled in family, right? And it wasn't necessarily their passion to build this t-shirt company, even though the company had grown past our expectations, right? At that time, it still wasn't their passion to be able to do that, particularly my brother, right? He left a career to help me out. My wife, she left a career to help me out. And I'm the one who started, and I was passionate about design and things like that. And so you can kind of see the writing on the wall that, okay, maybe it's time for us to start exploring some other opportunities. And I was burnt out too. We had hit a wall at a point, man. Revenue was good, sales was good, business was growing, but it's, how do you go to the next level? And the real question I had to face was, do I have the energy and the capacity to go to the next level in this industry? And after I analyzed it and looked at everything, the answer was no. And so that's how I knew it was time for me to sell.
Man, so let's get into the business broker aspect of things, man. Love to hear, because this is a piece that it's kind of like a myth almost. Like it's kind of somebody sold their company. You see it online. You see merge. You see acquisitions, right? And so let's talk to the entrepreneurs that are looking to. They're starting. They say, hey, look, I see some growth now. I have a potentially sellable business, right? What are some things that you see, or like some key things they need to have in place to make sure that they're prepared down the road soon to potentially sell their business?
It's a great question. I think, man, you first got to take yourself out of the shoes of the entrepreneur and put yourself in the shoes of a buyer, right? And just like with real estate, right? You got to evaluate what are some of the key aspects that will make somebody want to buy my business. And, to kind of touch base on what you said, a lot of people don't know that it's possible to sell a business. I didn't know that it was possible to sell a business. It wasn't my intentions to sell a business, right? It's just things worked out their way to where I was able to sell it. So I don't want to gloss over that, like, there's something that happens, a lot. But honestly, it does. It happens a lot now that I'm in this world and I'm exposed to it. I see it more. But, one of the things that entrepreneurs got to realize is, we got to make sure those books are clean, right? That's where the value of the business is first going to be determined. What does the books look like? We're going to evaluate revenue. We're going to evaluate, historical data over the past, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on, what the business looks like. And then we're going to determine how much is that business worth. And then you look at different things like customer concentration, right? How much of your revenue is dependent on one customer? How much is that spread out, right? And so these are things that business owners are going to look at. Key employees, right? Is the business solely dependent on the owner, right? If so, this buyer may want an absentee business. They may not want to buy a job, right? And more people are looking at buying business as investments like real estate. They want to buy the business. They want to make some tweaks because you got to think about this. A lot of the baby boomers that are retiring right now, right, their businesses, a lot of the systems they put in, it's 10, 15, they outdated basically. And so as an entrepreneur that want to buy a business, I'm going to look at is the cash flow, right? How do we determine it? It's going to be based off your financials. Right. So I would say, yeah, you need you a bookkeeper, but get you a CPA. Get somebody who understands, taxes. Because what a traditional bookkeeper or a tax preparer is going to do as an entrepreneur, they're going to try to show you how to write off as many deductions as possible. Right. Nobody's in business to see how much you can pay the tax man, right? We understand that. However, with a CPA and somebody who understands these things, they can show you how to properly write off things without affecting the bottom line of the business, right? Yeah. Because the people are looking at a business based on the revenue. Right? Yeah, you say you made money, but the tax returns don't show that. I can't go off of your word. Right? I need to see this in paper. So tax returns, customer diversification, putting systems in place so you as an owner are not doing everything in the business, right? And then there's a couple other things that go into that as well, man. People look at everything, your Google reviews, right? What's your relationship in the community? Do people like your business? So there's a whole host of things that, you need to look at to be prepared to be able to take your business to the market.
That's good, bro.
And I always tell people, you never really know when the right time is, but I can tell you the wrong time is when revenue starts declining. That's the worst time to try to sell business, right? Always, and people always say, man, I talk to business all the time. Hey, things are going good right now. I understand it. That's the best time to sell when things are going good because you can maximize the value of that business. Once revenue starts dropping, it's hard to get funding on the business, right? Banks don't want to see revenue dropping less than 10% year over year, or they won't even fund the deal, right? So if you want to decline, now you got to find a buyer who has liquid cash that's going to be willing to put that money into their business.
You talking. Let's go into it. Okay, so now you have the opportunity to either, some people can buy a business. So on the buyer side, we talk about sales side. On the buy side, somebody can actually buy a business with either liquid cash or they can buy it through a loan.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of information right now online, about buying business. Acquisition has become a little bit more popular, which is good for us, but it's also a great opportunity to educate the market, primarily buyers, right? Because there's a lot of information out there that says that, man, you got these baby boomers who are retiring, right? Go talk to them and ask them to seller finance the business, right? Put a little bit down, they carry the note, right? And you make an agreement to pay them off over time. That's a popular concept, but that's rarely the case, right? So as a buyer, if you're looking at buying a business, it's just like looking at buying a home, right? Go get you a pre-qualification letter. Go to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, who has the SBA 7A loan, which is a loan designed for acquisitions. And the reason that this loan product is popular is because it allows you to put 10% down. Okay. So we'll say hypothetically you want to buy $1 million business, right? The SBA will allow you to put $100,000 down and they will fund the remaining balance. And they will also kick in some working capital, right? Oh, wow. And so, you can go that route, which I tell a lot of people, go get, the SBA pre-approval because it's better to buy than to start, right? $100,000, I've started several businesses. Let me tell you, I put that in the podcast, I've started several businesses and you're going to spend the money regardless, right? And so the beauty of buying a business is you don't have to put up with all that startup headache, right? You already got customers in place. You already got goodwill in place, right? You already got brand recognition. You already got systems in place. And so, it's easier for you to have more success because if you look at like the SBA stats, I think after 5 years, 95% of businesses are gone, right? It's even rare to make it to, 10 years in business. So in order to minimize the risk, buy a business. But if you're gonna buy a business, think like a business owner, right? If you're gonna buy a business and an owner is willing to do 100% seller financing, you gotta ask yourself, is that a good business? And I'm gonna tell you why. You know, y'all run businesses. I ran a business. Would you do that type of deal as a business? If your business is good, right? Not 100% seller financing anything to you. Nah, you gotta pay me the value of the business. But you know, there's some pros and cons, and I see more people walking in our office wanting to buy businesses, and they just don't have the education because they've looked at some clickbait online, right? And they're thinking that, hey, you know, I want to get this $1 million business with I want to seller finance. Not gonna happen. Not if it's a good business, right? So,
man, you dropping some nuggets. I'm like, man, this like a. We need more time to really dive. Because I'm like, okay, talk a little more about this. Talk a little more about this. So we definitely may have to bring you back on. But you did all of this while impacting the community, right? It's evident the knowledge and the expertise that you have in this business space. Talk about why the community is also important to you. You know, why is Memphis a place in the community, a place where you're investing your time and your energy as well after selling your business?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think community is, you know, very, very important. And, you know, I even think about my involvement in community work. It's a little bit different, right? I've done the, you know, nonprofit work. I was a board chair of a nonprofit for a few years, helped oversee some projects in Orange Mound and things like that, even, you know, giving jobs to people within the community. So I think community is the foundation, right? We talked about gatekeeping. And this is one of the reasons that community is important, because we don't get a lot of opportunities sometimes, right? And we got to pool our resources together to make things happen. So, you know, pointing to community is always going to be you know, a profitable return. But, you know, sometimes I challenge community and the way that we think, right? Sometimes it's the things that we believe that we don't question that's holding us back. And what I see a lot of times in communities...
I was a little deep into that. Don't run past it. That was like a stop sign. But you say, what's some of those things? Just give us one or two that we believe that we probably should challenge.
Well, I think, man, biggest one is ownership, right? I think that we got to push the narrative of more ownership, whether it's home ownership, right? Business ownership. We look at our communities, you know, we don't own the businesses. Our communities go bankrupt. Y'all heard this, you know, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we don't own the business in the community. At 5 o'clock, we go bankrupt. You follow those business owners home, guess what? They're not staying in the community. They're taking that money into different parts of, you know what I'm saying, the city. And so ownership is always a big one, right? And so we just got to start questioning some of the traditional advice. And I'm a big data person, right, man? You want to know the truth behind anything. Just look at data. Look at the results. What have this mindset, what has this thought process produced? And, you know, in a city like Memphis, I would challenge us and say that mindset is we're going backwards, right? And so it's time for a more progressive thought process. It's time for us to question some of these traditional beliefs that we have and really start to say, man, are these things serving us? Are they hurting us? And why are we always perpetuating the same mindset? So for me, in community, sometimes I show up as a rebel, and that's okay. You know?
I want to shake some.
And I'm okay with playing it. You know, I'm okay with playing that role, man, because that's my career, that's my story, right? And one of my favorite poems, and you've heard me say, you probably can quote this, man, it's Robert Frost, right? And there's a part in there that says, 2 roads diverged in the woods. I chose the one less traveled, and it's made all the difference. Right. And so traveling that path allowed me to see a completely different side than the beliefs and the traditional thought process that we've been taught. And because, you know, I've been able to go down that road, I come back in community sometimes and say, hey, this isn't the only path. Yeah, this path may seem a whole lot easier, but, you know, let's try another path and let's see how it works. You know?
Yeah. And bro, it's like you talk a lot about, and a lot of this is mindset.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of this is mindset. And so the mindset piece is, okay, there's a knowledge of what you're sharing, and then there's also the application that you've experienced that marries with the knowledge that you have. Yeah. Sure. Right? So let's talk about your passion for reading. And how, like, that's why, bro, that man got so many books. That man quote so many books, bro. I'm like, how do you know that? You know what I mean? But talk about your passion for reading, bro, and how that influences your thought process, your decision making, the things that you do in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, man. That's
and a favorite question. Book too. Yeah.
Ooh, you said favorite book. It's gonna be hard for me to choose a favorite book.
What you reading right now?
Well,
probably about 4 of them, baby.
Honestly, the book that I'm reading right now is The Art of the Deal, Donald Trump.
Okay.
Great book, man.
Okay.
Great book.
I don't know
Love
about the timing, but
yeah. So, but anyway.
Let's travel, man.
Shout out to the president.
Yeah, great book. Honestly, if you read it, it'll help you understand a lot of the decisions that's being made from a negotiation deal standpoint, man. And I love negotiating. I love deal. So let's talk about frameworks around reading books, right? There's a couple of them, right? The first one is I realize you have a limited amount of time, right? I can't go in, it'll take me a lifetime to understand what Mark did with this company, right?
Okay, yeah.
But if Mark writes a book, I can read that book in 6 hours and download his life story, right? So we're collapsing information. So that's one of the first reasons I read. The second reason, and what really kind of got me on this, is I read a book, Think and Grow Rich, a Black edition by Dennis Kimbrough. Not the I've read the original one as well by Napoleon, but in that book he said, man, most Black millionaires read 4 books per month, right? And so I'm reading this and I said, man, I'm not even reading 2 books a year, right? And if I want to be a millionaire, I got to duplicate the habits of people that, you know what I'm saying? And so that's really...
That's why I'm 100 now.
That's good too, bro. That's good too.
Yeah, man. So that really kind of got me thinking about, all right, I got to up my education. Yeah, man, there's things that you want to accomplish in a certain amount of time, and these are resources. You can go to the library right now and get books for free, right? But the library is empty, right? And so, man, you want to learn. Books are a key way to, collapse time and information. So that's why I consume a lot of books, man. One of my favorite books is the Outwitting the Devil.
Okay.
I always recommend that to people. It's gonna kind of change your perspective on challenging some of these traditional, thought processes. Have you ever read the book?
I have. I'm over
Have you read it?
I have.
You
On
read
the podcast, I'm working on it. I'm reading Sacred Pace.
How many times you gonna hear me talk about this book?
Plenty times. Okay.
But in this book, man, what happens is Napoleon Hill interviews the devil. And the devil tells Napoleon Hill everything that he does to keep society back, right? And it's an eye-opening perspective because you're going to start seeing a lot of these things line up in your daily, activity, from education to church to, government to all of these things, right? And it takes you out of, your situation and make you kind of look at it. And so it's a great book from that perspective, man.
Yeah.
I know we got to wrap this thing up, man. We'll have to go to lunch after this talk. But man, one, thank you for your time. Thank you for the knowledge. And I think, man, this is so relatable because everybody is a business.
Yep, they are.
Like, there's acquisitions and selling happening every single day.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're selling your dream and you're trying to get people to buy into your dream, or people are investing in you because you've made it believable. Yeah. It's not just revenues and expenses. Did you keep your word?
Yeah.
Are you showing up? Are you going the extra mile? So this concept that you talked about as it relates to businesses is something that happens in everyday life for people. So, man, what's the legacy that you want to leave in the Memphis entrepreneurial ecosystem? You can answer that before we get to this creed.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think, man, if the legacy that I want to leave is more of an ideal of, don't be afraid to try. Everything that you're lacking is on the other side of failure, right? And so if you try, there's a lesson that you can learn from that failure, right, that allow you to build. So, man, I just, want to be an example of, things ain't always work out, right? And that's not my story. I'm not the one that's going to tell you it's always been pretty. But, if you stay persistent and consistent and work at it, right, there is victory on the other side. But you got to be willing to fail, man. You got to be willing to fail.
Man, I want to, give you your flowers, bro, because one, you were a coach for STS, you know what I'm saying? So not only were you a supporter vendor, and many times say, bro, y'all don't need to worry about it, or I get this done in the morning, just, man, quick orders on. But also, man, supporting STS, but also, man, you put me in front of the camera first. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I want to appreciate you, bro, putting it out there, man, and say, you call and say, hey, Alex, man, I want you to do this. And I ain't them like, bro, why would you call me? Yeah. It's almost the same way, Jay, you called when starting STS, like, bro, it's almost like, why would, and so one thing I appreciate about just people is seeing more in somebody than they seeing themselves. Yeah. Right. And so I appreciate you putting me in front of the camera, bro, man. It was an honor. It was a pleasure doing the podcast. Yeah, man. And blessings with your presence, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're doing some big things in the city. You probably, I don't think we've met anybody or anybody even out there that's saying, hey, I'm doing a business broker. Yeah. That looks like you.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? And it's knowledgeable and it's cold, you know what I mean? And so, man, we salute you, bro.
I appreciate
man,
it, man. I appreciate y'all for having me, man.
Shout out to White, man. I know you from out reading your daughter, man, being present with your daughter and, man, making she do her thing in the sports that she's playing, training up, playing basketball in the driveway. You know what I mean? So, man, we salute you, bro. So, man, all around, just a, man, businessman, father, husband, man, a great friend, bro.
Yeah,
we appreciate
vice
you.
versa, man.
Man, I want to say that, man. Thank you as well, bro, because I get a chance to see the challenge that you had, the impact you have on Alton life, and it made me better. I'm like, man, when I saw him, like, man, my dog, he on the podcast, that boy, he showing up consistently. Like, but he articulated, like, nah, Jack ain't ready for the podcast. Just being able to see how you impact somebody else's everyday life, and I think that helped him with real estate. Like, just being on your feet, like, so, man, thank you for being an example. Thank you for being a touchable leader, reachable leader. And man, thank you for making some deposits in us today, bro.
Man,
Really
vice
appreciate
versa,
it,
man. I appreciate y'all, man. Absolutely.
Gotta get the creed in, Alto.
Do you remember the creed, bro?
I don't.
Okay, good. Okay. We should have it up on the wall somewhere for help.
Y'all should, yeah.
So it's what we come to do, compete, how we rocking.
With excellence.
I'm a boss.
I got more to earn.
I'm a student.
I got more to learn.
I'm a leader.
I got more to change.
How we winning?
On purpose.
And just jump in whatever you feel like.
Ooh.
All right, okay. What we come to do?
Compete.
How we rocking?
With excellence.
With excellence.
I'm a boss.
I got more to earn.
I got more to earn.
I'm a student.
I got more to learn.
I'm a leader.
I got more to change.
How we winning?
On purpose.
All right.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Peace.